We're going to be live with Roy Rickstrew in just a minute for Funny Things Experts Say. Tune in right after this. Hey, good morning, everybody. We're going to look at the other camera for a minute, I guess. But here we're back. Hey, Roy, good to have you with us.
Good to be here, Will.
Hey, you and I both have been in hearings, and, you prepare your witnesses, and you think you know what they're going to say, but every once in a while, they go a little off track.
Well, right, and a little bit of a departure from the experience that you probably had is Social Security provides a vocational witness. We get a resume, but we don't really get an opportunity to prepare them or pose questions to them ahead of time or anything, But the vocational experts are kind of a wild card in these hearings, and we've talked about this, I think, before, that the judges bring these folks in to talk about what jobs look like as far as lift, stand, carry, understand, remember, those sorts of things.
Sure.
But then also to talk a little bit about what employers will require in a competitive job market. So we'll see things a lot of times about absenteeism, effects of extra breaks, the need to elevate feet, etc. But today I want to share a couple things that I've seen in actual hearings.
Yes.
For folks to kind of think about, a little bit of oddities, and from my humble opinion.
Very good.
But, years ago I had a hearing in Chicago and had a gentleman who had quite a bit of difficulty from a psychological perspective, borderline schizophrenic, some bipolar type stuff. And one of the limitations the judge gave was that he needed to be protected from hazards. Just thinking that maybe he couldn't rationalize the ways to keep himself safe. And so the vocational expert gave us this gem, and he indicated that a deli meat slicer was not a hazardous piece of equipment.
Well, somebody's never used a deli meat slicer.
Yeah. And
because,
of course,
wow. I mean, I have one, and I use it, and it scares me to death every time I use it.
I do too,
mean,
and cleaning it too, for that matter. Taking the blade off, and I'm always scared to death I'm going to drop that thing and take a finger.
Those suckers are so hard to clean. I mean, even you take them all apart, they are just so hard to clean.
Yeah, and I just couldn't hardly believe it. We're talking about a commercial version. It's probably got a 10-inch blade in it, nonetheless. And
12 or 14, yeah.
I mean, they do have some guards, but we've all seen these things in actions. And I tried real hard in the hearings to be very respectful to everybody there. I mean, that's part of my role. But I got to tell you, the first thing that came out of my mouth is that I can't imagine a more dangerous piece of equipment.
Yeah, I mean, a mandolin? I mean, a mandolin slicer is probably more dangerous, but which those really scare me. Anything that you can do something to yourself that, you really can't undo, take the tip of your finger off, and I guess they can sew that sucker back on, but still, ugh.
But a device that's made to cut meat.
I mean, do you look at something like, hey, are you sure about that? I mean, what do you base? I mean, what do you base that opinion on?
Yeah, and the funny thing with the vocational experts, and this is something that drives people crazy, they'll get in there and they'll testify, and you can argue with them to a point, but at some point they're going to say, well, this is based on my 25 years of direct experience.
With a meat slicer.
Exactly. And that's kind of the wild card for them. It's just my experience trumps whatever your concern is. And so a lot of times we'll take that stuff on post-hearing and writing where the vocational expert can't give us any more crazy testimony.
I mean, do you want to just look at them and go, all right, have you ever worked in a deli?
Yeah.
Do you ever, I mean, or is that one of those things you're like, I don't want to get into it with this guy? But I mean, I think I could cross-examine the heck out of that dude.
Yeah. And, we tackle it for a little while, but, the guy's not giving rational testimony anyway. And so it's a lot of times easier to just take it up post-hearing with the letters to the judge where the vocational expert can't give us any more crazy gems.
Do you ever see the judge just kind of go,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the judge knows it's
Oh,
crazy.
I had a gentleman that was schizophrenic, and he sat on the top of his apartment building at night, and he watched over the city like a Batman. Yeah.
Yep, Batman.
And in that hearing, the vocational expert had said, again, limitations to dangerous or hazardous equipment, said he could be a grocery cart pusher at Walmart. And, of course, this is around moving vehicles.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
obviously another dangerous environment for folks. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would be like a non-dangerous environment, like pillow stuffer? I mean, is that the type of stuff we're looking for, or office work? I guess maybe.
Yeah, hotel desk clerk, housekeeping. There's lots of things that.
Well, hotel desk clerks, they get shot. It's not depending on the type of hotel you're running. It could be very dangerous.
And then the other thing that I've seen here, and this was much more recent, the gal had socialization limitations. And the vocational expert testified that a drapery and curtain salesperson who, bear in mind, takes customers, visits with them, talks about their needs, goes to their homes, measures their curtains, that was occasional socialization. And
there's nothing in sales that would be occasional socialization. Exactly. All sales is constant socialization. That's what sales is.
Spot on. The only way you have occasional interaction in a sales position is if you're failing as a salesperson.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually have said, as I've talked to other folks about careers and leadership, mentoring, entrepreneurship, I said, listen, all of life is sales. I look at people that tell me, it's like, oh, I don't need sales training, I don't need sales skills. I'm I'm like, no, you do. Because all of life is sales. Everything that you do is sales. Sales applies to everything, as far as I'm concerned. Unless, you're sitting in the back room crunching numbers and you don't ever interact with anybody else, then maybe there's no sales involved. But even in your personal life, sales is important.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, and the last thing that I was going to kind of share today is, I've had vocational experts also point people back to jobs that just simply no longer exist, and that's actually pretty common.
Buggy whip manufacturing.
Like what?
Buggy whip manufacturing.
Just almost.
Yeah, there's a famous story about the buggy whip manufacturer that had the opportunity to invest in something else, like railroads or something. It was like, nah, we're good making buggy whips.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope. But anyway, sorry, I derailed you. No pun intended. Maybe it was.
Asbestos felt-backed tile inspector. And I've seen that come up a couple different times. Of course, asbestos was outlawed in the 80s, their early 80s.
Yeah.
The Dictionary of Occupational Titles that Social Security uses, the revision is 1973. And so there are jobs in the book that clearly don't exist anymore. We talked about that with the nursing home inspector
That's going to be 50 years old.
Yeah, it's older than I am.
Yeah. Well,
but
maybe not older than me, but
but yeah, the asbestos felt-backed tile inspector was one of my favorites, and of course my jaws just hit the desk. And here's kind of a pitch for hiring somebody to help you with these things. If you get in a hearing and you get one of these vocational experts that says, yeah, despite their limitations, they can go back to work
because they can inspect felt-backed asbestos tiles.
Yeah. It's very easy for the judge to say, well, the expert said there was work to do. We'll defer to the expert and we'll deny your case.
Because you got to ask the questions. You've got to ask those follow-up questions to figure out exactly what their opinion's based on, the underlying situations. And if you're not experienced in doing that, you don't know how.
Yeah. And, they use a lot of companion publications. I mean, the Dictionary of Occupational Titles is one, and, it's a huge book. I ought to bring it in sometime.
Oh, yeah, you should. That'd be fun.
And there's a Selected Characteristics of Occupations, which is a companion that goes along with it that tells us a little more detail about the reaching, the handling, the fingering, the environmental exposure and stuff. And then beyond that, they've been trying for about 10 years to move away from the Dictionary of Occupational Titles to the ONET, which is more of an online set. It's the Occupational Network, I think.
Well, it'd certainly be easier to update for good or for ill when it's online like that.
But you'll have vocational experts that draw from all of those publications. Some are, bound to that 1973 book. Some use the new book exclusively. That's not really even part of the Social Security program. But yeah, it's a lot for people to digest if you don't have some exposure. And if you aren't hungry to try to figure out, what exactly it is that they're referencing.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm sure that's true. If folks have more questions, they can call and get a hold of you today by calling the Resource Center at 417-882-1800. Visit your website, yourdisabilityrep.com, and join us next week for more Dollars and Cents.
Sounds good.
Or Dollars and Cents. That's Bruce's show.
Yeah.
Disability guy. We'll see you next week. Thanks
Take
for
care,
watching.
Rogersville.